Captain Marcus Chun stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Harmony, watching the massive alien structure grow larger through the viewport. The Zephyrian space station was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a crystalline cathedral that seemed to breathe with its own inner light, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface like living artwork, shifting between colors that had no names in human language. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," Communications Officer Riley reported, her voice tight with nervous energy. "It's the same message. They want to speak with our honored representative about a formal alliance." Marcus nodded, though his stomach churned with uncertainty. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that spanned dozens of star systems. The aliens had been surprisingly peaceful, even welcoming. Too welcoming, perhaps. Now, they were requesting a diplomatic meeting at their central station, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was walking into something far more complex than a simple trade agreement. The Harmony was humanity's most advanced ship, equipped with experimental jump drives and the best diplomatic team Earth could assemble. Marcus had been chosen to lead this mission not just for his military experience, but for his doctorate in xenobiology and his reputation for creative problem-solving. If anyone could navigate first contact with an advanced alien civilization, Command believed it was him. "Dr. Yamamoto, what's our analysis of their station's defenses?" Marcus asked, turning to the ship's science officer. The elderly Japanese scientist adjusted his glasses, scrolling through data on his tablet. "Fascinating, Captain. We can detect massive energy signatures throughout the structure, but none of them appear to be weapon systems. It's as if they built a city in space with no thought to military protection." "That's either supreme confidence or supreme naivety," Marcus muttered. "Maintain yellow alert status, but don't do anything that could be interpreted as aggressive." The Zephyrians had provided detailed docking instructions in flawless English, which had been another surprise. Their translation technology was apparently far more advanced than humanity's best efforts. Within hours of first contact, they had been communicating as fluently as old friends. As the Harmony approached the docking bay, Marcus could see movement through the transparent sections of the station. The Zephyrians moved with a fluid grace that reminded him of dancers or swimmers. From the limited visual data they had gathered, the aliens were humanoid, but distinctly otherworldly, tall, elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer with its own light. "Docking sequence initiated," Pilot Commander Sarah Park announced. "Their guidance systems are incredibly sophisticated. It's like the station is gently pulling us into the correct position." Marcus watched the docking process with professional interest, but his mind was elsewhere. The weight of representing all of humanity pressed down on him. Every decision he made here could determine whether Earth entered a new golden age of interstellar cooperation or found itself facing a threat beyond imagination. The docking clamps engaged with a soft vibration through the ship's hull. Marcus straightened his dress uniform and checked his appearance one final time. The diplomatic protocols had been drilled into him during the 3-week journey, but nothing could truly prepare someone for this moment. "Captain," Dr. Yamamoto said quietly, "I've been analyzing their communication patterns. There's something unusual about their diplomatic language. It contains layers of meaning that suggest their society operates on principles quite different from ours." "Different how?" "I'm not certain yet, but there are references to binding ceremonies and eternal partnerships that don't quite translate to standard diplomatic relationships. It could be cultural metaphor or they have very different ideas about what constitutes an alliance," Marcus finished. Noted. "Anything else I should know?" "They've specifically requested that you come alone for the initial meeting. No guards, no additional diplomats. Just you." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "That's unusual." "Very. But refusing might be interpreted as an insult. They've been extremely accommodating so far." The airlock cycled, and Marcus stepped into the alien station for the first time. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the air carried a faint scent of something like jasmine mixed with ozone. The corridor was more beautiful than the external sensors had suggested, walls of what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed gently with soft, warm light. A single figure waited to greet him. Marcus had seen images of Zephyrians during their communications, but meeting one in person was entirely different. She was tall, perhaps 6.5 feet, with skin that seemed to be made of starlight. Her features were elegant and angular, distinctly alien but somehow familiar. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her eyes were large and luminous, holding depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. But it was her clothing that truly caught his attention. She wore what could only be described as a gown made of condensed aurora, fabric that shifted between colors and seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could properly process. Delicate jewelry adorned her neck and wrists, pieces that looked like captured starlight. "Captain Shun," she said, and her voice was like music made audible, carrying harmonics that resonated in his chest. "I am Princess Lorelei, heir to the Zephyrian Empire and speaker for our people in matters of cosmic significance. We welcome you to our heart station with great joy." Marcus bowed formally, as he had been instructed. "Your Highness, I am honored to meet you. I represent humanity and our hopes for peaceful relations between our peoples." Princess Lyralei's expression brightened, and she clasped her hands together in what appeared to be delight. "Yes, yes, this is why you were chosen. Your people's representatives spoke truly. You carry the spark of genuine honor." Something in her phrasing made Marcus pause. "Chosen? I was appointed by my government to lead this mission." "Of course," she said, but there was something in her luminous eyes that suggested deeper meaning. "Come, we have prepared a welcome ceremony. Our greatest minds wish to meet the one who will stand beside us in the coming challenges." As they walked through corridors that seemed to exist in a state of control magic, Marcus tried to process what he was seeing. The station wasn't just advanced technology, it was art, philosophy, and engineering merged into something transcendent. Gardens grew in impossible geometric patterns, their plants seeming to bend light around themselves. Water flowed upward in spiraling streams that defied gravity, carrying what looked like swimming lights instead of fish. "Your technology is incredible," Marcus said, genuinely awed. "How do you achieve these effects?" "Technology?" Princess Lyralei looked puzzled for a moment, then laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Oh, you mean our harmony with natural forces. We do not dominate the universe, Captain Shun. We dance with it." They entered a vast chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The ceiling stretched so high it seemed to fade into actual starfield, and the floor was made of what appeared to be polished void, transparent material that looked down into swirling galaxies. Hundreds of Zephyrians filled the space. All turned to look at him with expressions of curiosity and what seemed like anticipation. "My people," Princess Lorelei announced, her voice somehow carrying clearly to every corner of the enormous room. "I present Captain Marcus Chun of humanity, who has traveled the great distance to stand with us." The assembled crowd responded with a sound that was part singing, part harmonic humming, and part something else entirely. It was beautiful and alien and slightly overwhelming. "The ceremony of introduction will now begin," the princess continued, and suddenly, Marcus realized that this was far more formal than he had expected. A group of Zephyrians approached, carrying what appeared to be ceremonial objects, crystalline artifacts that hummed with energy and purpose. Princess Lyralei took one, a pendant of shifting light, and held it toward Marcus. "By accepting this token," she said solemnly, "you agree to stand as bridge between our peoples, to share in our joys and sorrows, to be bound in purpose until the stars themselves grow cold." Marcus hesitated. The translation seemed clear enough, but Dr. Yamamoto's warnings echoed in his mind. There were layers here he didn't understand. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I want to ensure I understand the full meaning of this ceremony. When you say bound in purpose, what exactly does that entail? Princess Laurelia's expression grew puzzled again, and she turned to confer quietly with several other Zephyrians nearby. Their conversation was in their own language, musical and flowing, but Marcus could sense surprise in their tones. When she turned back to him, her luminous eyes held something like wonder. "Captain Shun," she said slowly, "do your people not practice the ritual of eternal bonding with their chosen allies? Do you not seal your most important relationships with the ceremony of souls?" Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him metaphorically. "Could you explain what you mean by eternal bonding and ceremony of souls?" The chamber had grown very quiet. All the assembled Zephyrians were watching the exchange with intense interest, and Marcus could sense that his answer was more important than he had initially realized. Princess Lyreliai's skin seemed to shimmer brighter as what appeared to be emotion played across her features. "Among our people, when two beings choose to unite their destinies, whether in governance, exploration, or any great purpose, they join their very essence. They become two parts of a single greater whole, sharing thoughts, emotions, dreams. It is the most sacred act possible, reserved for the deepest partnerships." Marcus's mind raced. This wasn't just a diplomatic alliance they were discussing. This was something far more intimate, far more permanent. And somehow, without realizing it, he had been positioned as humanity's candidate for this cosmic marriage. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I believe there may have been a misunderstanding in our communications. When humanity spoke of alliance, we meant governmental cooperation, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts. We weren't aware that you were proposing a personal bonding between individuals." The silence that followed was profound. Princess Lyreliai stared at him with an expression that cycled through confusion, realization, and then something that might have been hurt. "You do not wish to join with me?" she asked, her voice smaller than before. "Your people sent you here, called you their finest representative, spoke of your honor and courage. We understood this to mean you were their chosen partner for the great bonding." Marcus could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him, could sense that this moment was balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong word could shatter humanity's relationship with the most advanced civilization they had ever encountered. But, more than that, he could see the genuine emotion in Princess Lyreliai's expression. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. She had been personally preparing for what she believed would be a joining of souls with someone her people had presented as worthy of her devotion. "Your Highness," Marcus said gently, "the misunderstanding is not your fault, nor is it mine. Our peoples simply have different customs. But I want you to know that I am deeply honored that you would consider me worthy of such a sacred bond." Hope flickered in her luminous eyes. "Then, you might be willing? Even though your people did not intend it thus." Marcus looked around the vast chamber, at the assembled Zephyrians who represented a civilization that could either become humanity's greatest ally or most dangerous enemy. He thought of Earth, of the billions of people whose future might rest on the decision he made in this moment. But mostly, he looked at Princess Lyreliai, at the hope and vulnerability in her expression, at the genuine emotion she was displaying despite the vast differences between their species. "Your Highness," he said slowly, "I need to understand exactly what this bonding entails. Not just the ceremony, but the responsibilities, the permanence, the changes it would bring to both of us." Princess Lyreliai's skin brightened visibly, and a murmur of what sounded like approval rippled through the assembled crowd. "Of course," she said, her musical voice returning to its earlier warmth. "The bonding is not something to enter lightly. Come, let me show you what it truly means to join one's essence with another." As they moved toward what appeared to be a more private chamber, Marcus realized that he had stepped far beyond the boundaries of any diplomatic mission humanity had ever attempted. He was venturing into territory that would redefine not just relations between species, but the very nature of what it meant to be human in a universe full of wonders beyond imagination. The choice before him was no longer about trade agreements or military alliances. It was about two beings from vastly different worlds finding a way to bridge the gap between species, between ways of understanding existence itself. And somehow, despite the impossibility of it all, Marcus found himself genuinely curious about what Princess Lyralii was about to show him. Princess Lyralii led Marcus through corridors that seemed to respond to her presence, walls brightening as they approached and dimming gently after they passed. The deeper they went into the station, the more organic everything appeared. Marcus began to suspect that what he had taken for advanced technology was actually something closer to a living organism shaped by will and intention. They entered a circular chamber that felt sacred in a way Marcus couldn't quite articulate. The walls were covered in flowing script that moved and changed as he watched, telling stories in light and motion. At the center of the room stood what appeared to be a pool of liquid starlight, its surface perfectly still, but somehow giving the impression of infinite depth. "This is the Chamber of Understanding," Princess Lyralii said softly. "Here, potential bondmates can experience what true joining means without committing to the permanence. It will allow you to feel what I feel, see what I see, understand what I understand, but only for a brief time." Marcus studied the pool carefully. "Is it safe for humans?" "The chamber adapts to any conscious being," she replied. "It has been used by dozens of species throughout our empire. Some chose bonding afterward, others did not. There is no shame in either choice." She moved to the edge of the pool, her aurora gown flowing around her feet. "If you are willing, we can share thoughts for just a moment. You will understand what bonding truly means, and I will understand why humanity approaches relationships differently." Marcus considered the risks. This could be a trap, a way to gain access to human knowledge, or to control him somehow. But Princess Lyralii's demeanor suggested genuine openness, and he reminded himself that the Zephyrians had shown no signs of deception since first contact. "What I need to do? Simply touch the surface with me," she said, extending her hand toward the pool. "The connection will be gentle and brief. Think of it as a handshake between minds." Marcus rolled up his sleeve and knelt beside the pool. The liquid starlight felt warm against his fingertips, and he was surprised to find it had substance. Not quite water, but not quite energy either. Princess Lyralii placed her hand next to his, and the moment their reflections touched in the luminous surface, the world exploded into sensation. Suddenly, Marcus was experiencing existence from an entirely different perspective. He could feel the vast network of life that connected every Zephyrian to every other, a constant, gentle flow of shared emotion and purpose that had existed for millennia. It wasn't overwhelming or invasive, more like background music that made every moment richer and more meaningful. Through Princess Lyralii's perception, he experienced her memories of preparing for this meeting. She had studied humanity for months, learning about their customs, their art, their struggles, and triumphs. She had been genuinely excited about the prospect of bonding with a human, seeing it as a bridge between two species that could create something entirely new and wonderful. But more than that, he felt her loneliness. As a princess, she had been set apart from the deeper connections other Zephyrians enjoyed. Her potential bondmates had always been chosen for political advantage rather than compatibility. The opportunity to choose freely, to bond with someone from an entirely different species who would see her for herself rather than her position. It had filled her with a hope she had barely dared to acknowledge. And through their connection, Princess Lyralii experienced Marcus's world. She felt the fierce independence that characterized humanity, their drive to explore and overcome challenges through individual determination rather than collective harmony. She experienced his memories of Earth, blue skies, and ocean waves, the satisfaction of solving complex problems, the bittersweet beauty of human relationships that burned brightly but remained forever separate. She felt his dedication to his mission, his genuine desire to help both species benefit from contact, and his fear that he might somehow fail the billions of people depending on him. But underneath it all, she sensed something that surprised her, a deep loneliness that matched her own, a feeling of being set apart by responsibility and duty. The connection lasted only moments, but when they withdrew their hands from the pool, both were breathing hard and staring at each other with new understanding. "Your people," Princess Lyrelii said wonderingly, "they live as islands, each person complete and separate, connected only by choice and effort. And your people live as an ocean," Marcus replied, equally amazed. "All connected, all part of something larger than themselves." They sat in silence for a while, processing what they had experienced. Marcus found himself thinking about the profound loneliness he had felt in Princess Lyrelii's memories, despite her connection to millions of other minds. Being constantly linked to others didn't automatically create the deep, personal understanding she craved. "The bonding," Princess Lyrelii said finally, "it would create something between our two ways of being. Not the constant connection my people know, not the isolation yours often experience, but a chosen partnership that bridges both worlds." Marcus nodded slowly. "I can see why your people value it so highly. But I also understand now why it seemed so overwhelming from a human perspective. We're not accustomed to sharing ourselves so completely. And yet," Princess Lyrelii said with a small smile, "in that brief moment, you did share completely." And the galaxy did not end. Before Marcus could respond, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. Princess Lyrelii's expression grew concerned as she touched a crystalline pendant at her throat. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "A message from the High Council," she said, her luminous features darkening. "They wish to speak with both of us immediately. This is unusual." They made their way swiftly through the station's flowing corridors, but Marcus could sense tension in Princess Lyrelii that hadn't been there before. Other Zephyrians they passed seemed agitated, their normally graceful movements sharp with anxiety. The High Council chamber was another architectural marvel, a spherical room where the counselors floated at various levels around a central speaking area. Each counselor appeared to be ancient even by Zephyrian standards, their skin carrying deep starlight patterns that spoke of vast experience. Princess Lyrelii spoke the central figure, whose voice carried harmonics that suggested immense authority. "Captain Chun, we have received concerning communications from the outer territories of our empire." A holographic display materialized in the center of the sphere, showing star charts and ship movements. Marcus recognized some of the symbols as representing Zephyrian vessels, but there were others he didn't understand. "The Vorthan Collective has begun moving ships toward our border," the counselor continued. "They claim that our alliance negotiations with humanity represent a violation of ancient territorial agreements." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Territorial Avrains." Another counselor, this one with silver patterns across her skin, gestured, and the display zoomed to show a vast region of space. Long ago, the major powers in this galactic sector agreed that no new alliances would be formed that could upset the existing balance. The Vorthans fear that humanity's technological potential combined with our spiritual capabilities could create a destabilizing force. They're essentially claiming that our alliance constitutes an act of war, Princess Lyrelii said, her voice tight with controlled anger. They demand that we cease all contact with humanity immediately. Marcus studied the display, his tactical training automatically analyzing the ship positions and movement patterns. The Vorthans appear to have a significant military advantage in terms of raw numbers, though he couldn't assess their technology level from the limited data. "What are the Vorthans like as opponents?" he asked. The Central Counselor's expression grew grim. "They are a machine civilization, Captain Chun. They value efficiency, logic, and power above all else. They see the universe as a resource to be optimized and controlled. In many ways, they're the opposite of everything we represent." And they've been our primary rivals for over 1,000 years, Princess Lyralii added. We've maintained an uneasy peace, but it's always been fragile. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. Humanity had stumbled into the middle of a cosmic Cold War, and their mere presence was threatening to turn it hot. But there was something else bothering him about the timing. How did the Vorthans learn about our negotiations so quickly? He asked. We've only been here for a few hours. The counselors exchanged meaningful looks, and Marcus could sense a deeper current of concern flowing between them. We believe, the silver-patterned counselor said carefully, that they have been monitoring our communications for some time. They may have infiltrated our outer territories. Or, Princess Lyralii said quietly, they have agents within our empire itself. The implications of that statement hung heavy in the air. If the Zephyrians had traitors working for the Vorthans, then this entire meeting could be compromised. What are our options? Marcus asked, falling into the military mindset that had served him well in countless crises. The High Council is divided, the central figure admitted. Some believe we should acquiesce to Vorthan demands and end contact with humanity to preserve peace. Others argue that yielding now will only encourage further aggression. And what do you believe personally? Marcus directed the question to Princess Lyralii. Her skin flared with bright patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as anger. I believe that allowing the Vorthans to dictate our relationships is the first step toward complete subjugation. They seek to control not just territory, but the very connections between conscious beings. One of the younger counselors gestured, and the display changed to show detailed scans of the approaching Vorthan fleet. Their ships have been detected entering the neutral zone. They will be within strike range of this station in approximately 6 of your Earth hours. Marcus studied the formation with professional interest. They're not just positioning for defense, he realized. This is an attack formation designed to isolate and destroy the station while preventing escape. Indeed, Princess Lyralii confirmed. If they attack, they intend to ensure no witnesses survive. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vorthans weren't just trying to prevent an alliance. They were preparing to eliminate both the Zephyrian leadership and humanity's representative in a single strike. However, the central counselor said, and something in his tone made Marcus look up sharply, there is one option that might change the entire situation. Princess Lyralii's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. The ceremony of eternal bonding. Explain, Marcus said tersely. If you and Princess Lyralii were to complete the full bonding ceremony, the counselor said, it would create a formal link between our species that goes beyond mere political alliance. By our oldest laws, laws that even the Vorthans acknowledge, such a bond cannot be broken by outside force. It would make any attack on our alliance an attack on a sacred union. Princess Lyralii said, understanding dawning in her expression. The Vorthans would lose all legal justification for their aggression. Marcus felt the weight of impossible choice settling on his shoulders again. And if we don't complete this ceremony, then the Vorthans will likely attack within hours, the silver-patterned counselor said bluntly. They will destroy this station, eliminate Princess Lyralii and the High Council, and claim they were preventing a dangerous alliance from forming. Your ship would be destroyed as well. No human survivors to contradict their version of events. But if we do complete the bonding, Marcus said slowly, working through the implications, it would mean permanent changes to both of us. And humanity would suddenly find itself in a very different relationship with your empire than anyone expected. Princess Lyralii was silent for a long moment, her luminous features cycling through complex emotions. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but soft. Captain Chun, I will not ask you to sacrifice yourself for my people's political needs. The bonding is meant to be a choice made from joy and hope, not desperation and fear. Marcus looked around the chamber at the assembled counselors, then at the tactical display showing the approaching Vorthan fleet. In a few hours, ships carrying weapons beyond human imagination would arrive with the intent to erase any trace of the most important first contact in human history. But, more than that, he thought about the brief connection he had shared with Princess Lyralii in the Chamber of Understanding. He had felt her genuine hope, her excitement about the possibilities their alliance could create, her deep loneliness that mirrored his own. Princess Lyralii, he said formally, if we were to undergo this bonding ceremony, what would it mean for our peoples? Not just the immediate political protection, but the long-term implications. Her skin brightened with what he was learning to recognize as hope. It would create a bridge between our civilizations, Captain, a living symbol of cooperation between individual strength and collective harmony. Our peoples could learn from each other in ways that have never been possible before. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of Earth, of the crew aboard the Harmony, of the billions of humans who had no idea their representative was contemplating something that would redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. When he opened his eyes, Princess Lyralii was watching him with an expression of patient understanding. She would accept whatever choice he made, he realized. She wouldn't try to manipulate or pressure him. That realization, more than any political consideration, helped him make his decision. Your Highness, Marcus said formally, if you're willing to guide me through the process, I would be honored to undergo the ceremony of eternal bonding with you. The chamber erupted in harmonious sounds that Marcus interpreted as surprise and approval. Princess Lyralii stared at him with an expression of wonder that made her skin glow like a miniature star. You truly choose me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Despite the circumstances, despite the differences between us, despite the fact that this was not what your people intended when they sent you here. Marcus looked into her luminous eyes and realized that somewhere in the past few hours, his answer had become completely honest. Yes, he said simply, I choose you. The preparation for the ceremony of eternal bonding began immediately, with an urgency that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. Princess Lyralii led Marcus through corridors that seemed to pulse with anticipation, while the station around them transformed in ways that defied human understanding. The ceremony must be perfect, she explained as they moved swiftly toward the central sanctum. Any flaw in the bonding process could provide the Vorthans with a legal excuse to claim it invalid. Behind them, the High Council dispersed to handle the massive organizational effort required. Ancient protocols were being activated for the first time in centuries, while diplomatic messages were being sent to neutral powers throughout the galaxy. By the time the Vorthans arrived, the entire galactic community would know that a formal bonding ceremony was taking place. Marcus tried to process everything that was happening while simultaneously preparing mentally for something he still didn't fully understand. How long does the ceremony typically take? Under normal circumstances, the full ritual spans 3 days, Princess Lyralii replied, then saw his expression. However, the emergency protocols allow for a condensed version that can be completed in approximately 2 hours. 2 hours before the Vorthans arrive, Marcus calculated grimly. That's cutting it very close. They entered what Princess Lyralii called the Heart Chamber, and Marcus immediately understood why it held that name. The vast space pulsed with rhythmic light that resembled a cosmic heartbeat, and the walls were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to represent the life force of the entire Zephyrian civilization. At the center stood an altar that appeared to be carved from a single massive crystal, surrounded by flowing streams of energy that defied several laws of physics Marcus thought he understood. Captain Shun, Princess Lyralii said softly, there is something I must tell you before we begin. The bonding will change us both permanently. We will retain our individual personalities and memories, but we will also share a connection that transcends physical space and time. Even if we're separated by vast distances, we will be able to sense each other's emotions, thoughts, and well-being. Marcus studied her luminous features carefully, and You're willing to accept this with someone you've known for less than a day? I've been studying humanity for months, she replied. And in our brief connection earlier, I felt your true nature. You are honorable, intelligent, and genuinely care about the welfare of others. These are the qualities that matter for an eternal bond. Before Marcus could respond, a new voice interrupted them. Your Highness, we have an urgent development. They turned to see Commander Zarek, Princess Laureliai's military advisor, approaching with obvious concern. The tall Zephyrian skin patterns were flashing in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as alarm. The Vorthan fleet has accelerated their approach, Commander Zarek reported. They will arrive in 1 hour and 20 minutes, not 6 hours as initially calculated. Princess Laureliai's skin dimmed with worry. That makes the timing extremely tight. The condensed ceremony requires at least 90 minutes to complete properly. There's more, Commander Zarek continued grimly. Our long-range sensors have detected additional Vorthan ships approaching from 3 different vectors. This isn't just a show of force. They're positioning for a complete blockade of this sector. Marcus's military training kicked in immediately. They're not just trying to prevent the ceremony. They're planning to control this entire region of space afterward. Indeed, Princess Laureliai agreed, her expression hardening with resolve. If they succeed here, they will have effectively ended our empire's independence. The implications were staggering. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization had inadvertently triggered what could become a major galactic war. But Marcus also realized something else. The Vorthan's aggressive response suggested they were more afraid of a human-Zephyrian alliance than they were letting on. Princess Laureliai, he said thoughtfully, why are the Vorthans so concerned about humanity specifically? We're a single planet with primitive technology compared to galactic standards. Her luminous eyes met his, and he saw a flicker of something that might have been pride. Because, Captain Shun, your people possess something that terrifies civilizations like the Vorthans. You have the ability to adapt, to innovate, to find solutions that no one else has considered. In just a few centuries, you went from primitive agriculture to interstellar travel. That rate of advancement is unprecedented. Commander Zarek nodded agreement. The Vorthans have spent millennia optimizing their civilization for efficiency and control. They see humanity's chaotic creativity as a fundamental threat to their ordered universe. Marcus began to understand the larger picture. Humanity wasn't just stumbling into an alien conflict. They were the conflict. Their very existence represented a challenge to civilizations that had achieved stability through rigid control. Which means, he said slowly, that whether or not we complete this bonding ceremony, the Vorthans will continue to see humanity as a threat. Exactly, Princess Laureliai confirmed. But if we succeed in creating this alliance, humanity will not face that threat alone. A soft chime echoed through the heart chamber, and the crystal altar began to glow more brightly. The ceremony chamber is ready, Princess Laureliai announced. Captain Shun, are you certain you want to proceed? Once we begin, the process cannot be stopped without causing permanent damage to both of us. Marcus looked around the magnificent chamber, thinking about the approaching enemy fleet, the billions of humans who had no idea their fate was being decided in this moment, and the luminous woman beside him who was willing to bind her soul to a complete stranger to save both their peoples. I'm certain, he said firmly. What I need to do. Princess Laureliai moved to the crystal altar, her aurora gown flowing around her like liquid starlight. The bonding requires us to open our minds completely to each other, deeper and more permanent than what we experienced in the Chamber of Understanding. We will share not just thoughts and emotions, but our essential selves. She gestured for Marcus to stand opposite her, with the altar between them. As he moved into position, the chamber around them began to respond. The walls brightened, the energy streams flowed faster, and the cosmic heartbeat of light grew stronger. Place your hands on the altar, Princess Laureliai instructed, and open your mind to mine. Do not resist anything you feel. The bond must be accepted willingly by both participants. Marcus placed his palms flat against the crystal surface. It was warm and seemed to pulse with its own life. Across from him, Princess Lyralii did the same, and immediately the altar began to glow more intensely. "Now," she said softly, "let down every barrier between us." The connection began slowly, like dawn breaking across a vast landscape. At first, Marcus simply felt Princess Lyralii's presence more clearly than before. Her nervousness about the ceremony, her determination to protect her people, her genuine affection for him despite their brief acquaintance. But then the bond deepened, and suddenly Marcus was experiencing centuries of Zephyrian memories through Princess Lyralii's perspective. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the slow evolution of their empire from conquest to cooperation, the deep philosophical understanding that had shaped their culture around harmony and connection. Through their link, Princess Lyralii experienced humanity's chaotic but brilliant history, wars and peace, scientific breakthroughs and artistic achievements, the messy but vital process by which individual humans chose to work together despite their differences. The bonding process was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. Instead of losing his individual identity, he felt it becoming stronger and more complex as it merged with Princess Lyralii's perspective. He was still Marcus Chun, but now he was also part of something larger and more complete. Through Princess Lyralii, he felt the vast network of Zephyrian consciousness, but filtered through her unique position as someone who had always stood slightly apart. Through Marcus, she experienced the fierce independence that characterized human thought, but tempered by his deep commitment to protecting others. As the bond solidified, Marcus began to understand things about the universe that human science hadn't yet discovered. Energy and consciousness were more deeply connected than anyone on Earth had realized. Life itself was part of a vast cosmic pattern that linked all thinking beings across space and time. But Princess Lyralii was gaining equally valuable insights. Through Marcus's memories, she experienced human creativity and problem-solving in action. She saw how humanity's chaotic approach to challenges often led to breakthrough solutions that more orderly civilizations missed entirely. The altar between them was now blazing with light, and Marcus could feel the ceremony approaching its climax. But suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Commander Zarek's voice echoed through the chamber. "Your Highness, the Vorthan fleet has arrived ahead of schedule. They are demanding immediate cessation of all Alliance activities and are powering their weapons systems." Marcus started to pull his hands away from the altar, but Princess Lyralii's voice stopped him. "Don't break the connection," she said urgently. "We're too far into the process. Stopping now would damage us both permanently." Through their developing bond, Marcus could feel her certainty about this. The Vorthan timing was not accidental. They had calculated their arrival to disrupt the ceremony at its most vulnerable point. "How long until the bonding is complete?" Marcus asked, maintaining his connection to the altar despite the chaos around them. "Another 15 minutes, Princess Lyralii replied, her concentration intense as she maintained her part of the ceremony. The alarms grew louder, and Marcus could hear the sound of Zephyrian voices throughout the station as emergency protocols were activated. Through their partial bond, he could sense Princess Lyralii's growing concern for her people. Then, Commander Zarek's voice returned, more urgent than before. "Your Highness, the Vorthans have sent a final ultimatum. If the ceremony does not cease within 10 minutes, they will open fire on the station." Marcus felt Princess Lyralii's anguish through their connection. She was torn between completing the bond that could save both their civilizations and protecting the thousands of Zephyrians on the station who would die if the Vorthans carried out their threat. "Princess," he said quietly, "what will happen if we stop the ceremony now?" "The incomplete bond would leave us both mentally fractured," she replied, tears of liquid light forming in her luminous eyes. But I cannot ask thousands of innocent people to die for our union. Marcus could feel her preparing to break the connection despite the cost to herself. Her willingness to sacrifice everything for her people's safety only strengthened his resolve. "Wait," he said firmly. "There might be another option." Through their developing bond, Marcus was beginning to access Princess Lyraliai's understanding of Zephyrian technology and galactic law. The station wasn't just a diplomatic facility. It was also one of the most advanced technological achievements in the galaxy. And the bonding ceremony itself was protected by laws that even the Vorthans claimed to respect. "The station has defensive capabilities, doesn't it?" Marcus asked. "Yes, but not enough to withstand a full Vorthan fleet," Princess Lyraliai replied. "What if we didn't have to fight them?" Marcus suggested, an idea forming in his mind that drew from both human tactical thinking and Zephyrian understanding of energy manipulation. What if we could make it impossible for them to attack without violating their own legal justifications? Princess Lyraliai's eyes widened as she followed his thought process through their bond. "You're suggesting we complete the ceremony in full view of the entire galaxy?" "Exactly. They claim to be enforcing ancient laws against destabilizing alliances. But if those same laws protect bonding ceremonies, they'll be trapped by their own justification." Through the altar's connection to the station's systems, Marcus could feel the vast communication networks that linked the Zephyrian Empire to the rest of galactic civilization. With Princess Lyraliai's knowledge and his own tactical instincts, they could turn their ceremony into the most public diplomatic event in galactic history. "It's risky," Princess Lyraliai said, but hope was growing in her voice. "If we broadcast the ceremony, it becomes legally impossible for anyone to interfere. But it also means we can never undo what we're about to do." "I understand," Marcus replied, and through their bond, she could feel that he truly did. "Princess Lyraliai, do you trust me?" Her luminous features brightened with determination. "With my life, my people, and my very soul." "Then let's show the galaxy what humanity and the Zephyrians can accomplish together." As alarms continue to sound around them, and enemy ships position themselves for attack, Marcus and Princess Lyraliai prepared to complete a bonding that would change not just their own lives, but the balance of power throughout the known universe. "Commander Zurich," Princess Lyraliai called out, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos around them. "Activate the galactic broadcast array. Priority Alpha protocols." "Your Highness?" came a confused reply. "Open a live connection to every major civilization in the galaxy," Marcus added, understanding immediately flowing through their partial bond. "We're making this ceremony as public as possible." Through their connection to the crystal altar, they could feel the station's massive communication systems powering up. The Zephyrians had built their central station to be the heart of their diplomatic network, capable of reaching across vast distances instantaneously. Within moments, the heart chamber was filled with holographic displays showing representatives from dozens of different civilizations, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form. Marcus recognized a few from the diplomatic briefings he had received, but most were entirely unknown to him. "Citizens of the galaxy," Princess Lyraliai announced, her voice carrying the formal authority of her royal position. "We gather to witness a ceremony of eternal bonding between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity, as represented by Captain Marcus Chun of Earth." A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembled representatives. Many of them were clearly seeing humans for the first time, and Marcus realized that this moment was far more significant than even he had understood. This wasn't just first contact between two civilizations. It was humanity's introduction to galactic society. Through their bond, Marcus felt Princess Lyraliai's fierce pride in this moment. She was presenting humanity not as a junior partner or supplicant, but as equals worthy of the most sacred bond her people could offer. "The Vorthan Collective has positioned their fleet around this station," Princess Lyraliai continued, claiming that our alliance violates ancient territorial agreements. We invite all witnesses to observe that this ceremony follows the oldest laws of bonding, which supersede all political arrangements. On one of the displays, Marcus could see a Vorthan representative, a being that looked like a fusion of machine and insect, with metallic skin and compound eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. "This proceeding is irregular," the Vorthan declared, its voice mechanical and precise. "The bonding laws do not apply to species that are not recognized members of galactic civilization. Humanity becomes recognized by this very ceremony." Princess Lyralii replied smoothly. "As the oldest civilization in this sector, the Zephyrian Empire has the authority to extend such recognition." Marcus could feel the legal and political implications flowing through their bond. This wasn't just a marriage ceremony. It was humanity's formal entrance into galactic society, with all the rights and protections that entailed. But the Vorthans weren't finished. Even if recognition is granted, the mechanical being continued. The bonding of a primitive species with an advanced civilization is unprecedented. The legal validity is questionable. Then, let us demonstrate that humanity is far from primitive, Marcus said, speaking for the first time to the Galactic Assembly. Through their connection, he drew upon Princess Lyralii's understanding of galactic law and custom, while she accessed his knowledge of human achievement and potential. Together, they began to weave a response that was part legal argument, part philosophical statement, and part demonstration of what their bonding could accomplish. "For the past several months," Marcus continued, "the Zephyrian Empire has studied human civilization. They have seen our art, our science, our capacity for both conflict and cooperation. They have concluded that humanity possesses qualities that complement and enhance Zephyrian wisdom." Princess Lyralii took up the thread seamlessly, their shared thoughts making their partnership evident to all observers. "And through our preliminary connections, I have experienced human innovation and adaptability firsthand. Captain Chun has shown me ways of thinking that our civilization had not previously considered." But, Marcus added, turning to address the Vorthan representative directly, "we understand the collective concerns. They fear that an alliance between human creativity and Zephyrian harmony could disrupt the existing balance of power. Such disruption could destabilize the entire sector," the Vorthan replied, but there was something in its tone that suggested uncertainty. "Or it could solve problems that current civilizations haven't been able to address," Princess Lyralii countered. "Through our partial bond, Captain Chun and I have already begun to explore new possibilities for energy manipulation, space travel, and consciousness integration." This was true. Through their connection, Marcus had begun to understand how Zephyrian technology worked on principles of harmony rather than force, while Princess Lyralii had grasped human concepts of iterative improvement and experimental innovation. "Demonstrate," came a new voice from the assembly, a crystalline being whose form seemed to shift between dimensions. Marcus and Princess Lyralii looked at each other across the blazing altar. The ceremony was nearly complete, but they still had a few minutes before the bond became permanent. Could they show the galaxy what their partnership might accomplish? "The station's energy systems," Princess Lyralii said quietly. "They've been operating at standard efficiency for centuries. But if we combine Zephyrian harmony principles with human optimization techniques," Marcus understood immediately. Through their bond, he could perceive the vast energy flows that powered the station. The Zephyrians had designed them for stability and beauty, but human engineering approaches could make them significantly more efficient. Together, they reached out through the altar's connection to the station's power grid. Princess Lyralii provided the harmonic understanding needed to avoid disrupting the delicate balance, while Marcus applied systematic analysis to identify inefficiencies and optimization opportunities. The effect was immediate and visible. Throughout the heart chamber, the flowing energy streams began to move faster and more smoothly. The station's lights grew brighter, but somehow softer, and Marcus could feel that power consumption was actually decreasing even as output increased. But more impressive than the technical achievement was the way they had accomplished it. Neither of them could have managed the optimization alone. It required the seamless integration of two completely different approaches to problem solving. Remarkable, breathed the crystalline representative. They've improved efficiency by 30% without altering the fundamental harmonic structure. Murmurs of amazement rippled through the galactic assembly. Even the Vorthan representative seemed taken aback by what they had witnessed. This demonstration illustrates exactly why the collective opposes this alliance, the Vorthan said, but its voice lacked the confidence it had shown earlier. Such rapid advancement is inherently destabilizing. Only to those who profit from stagnation, replied a new voice, a representative from what Marcus's briefings had identified as the Stellar Commonwealth, a loose alliance of younger civilizations. The Vorthans have maintained their position through technological superiority, added another representative. They fear any advancement that might challenge that superiority. Marcus could see that the political tide was turning. The galactic community was beginning to understand that this wasn't really about territorial agreements or legal precedents. It was about whether established powers could prevent emerging civilizations from forming new alliances. But the Vorthans weren't defeated yet. Regardless of political considerations, the mechanical being declared, the collective maintains its position that this alliance represents a threat to sector stability. Our fleet will take whatever action is necessary to preserve the peace, even if that action violates the very laws you claim to uphold. Princess Lyralii asked pointedly. The preservation of order sometimes requires difficult choices, the Vorthan replied, and Marcus could hear the implied threat clearly. Through their bond, he felt Princess Lyralii's growing anger at the Vorthan's hypocrisy. But he also sensed something else, a realization that was forming as their connection deepened. Princess, he said quietly, the bonding ceremony isn't just creating a link between us. It's creating a link between our civilizations that goes beyond politics or military power. Her luminous eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. A resonance connection. If we complete the bond, every human and every Zephyrian will be subtly connected through us. Which means, Marcus continued, working through the implications, that any attack on either civilization would affect both. The Vorthans wouldn't just be attacking the Zephyrian Empire, they'd be attacking humanity as well. And humanity has proven to be remarkably resourceful when threatened. Princess Lyralii said with a smile that was equal parts beautiful and predatory. The Vorthan representative seemed to sense the shift in the conversation, even without understanding the specifics. What are you discussing? Marcus turned to address the Galactic Assembly. We're discussing the true implications of this bonding ceremony. It's not just a political alliance or even a personal union between Princess Lyralii and myself. It's the creation of a new form of civilization, one that combines the best aspects of individual achievement and collective harmony. A civilization, Princess Lyralii added, that will be inherently resistant to the kind of rigid control that some powers prefer to maintain. Through their bond, Marcus could feel the ceremony approaching its final phase. In just a few more minutes, their connection would become permanent and complete. But he could also sense something else. Other Zephyrians throughout the Empire were beginning to feel echoes of their bond, just as Princess Lyralii had predicted. And on Earth, though the mechanism was different, humans involved in space exploration and xenobiology were starting to experience strange dreams and intuitions that would lead them to make breakthrough discoveries in the coming months. The bonding wasn't just connecting Marcus and Princess Lyralii. It was creating a bridge between two entirely different ways of existing in the universe. The ceremony is nearly complete, Princess Lyralii announced to the assembly. In accordance with the ancient laws that all civilizations in this sector acknowledge, I call upon you to witness the eternal bond between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. The crystal altar was now blazing so brightly that it was difficult to look at directly. Marcus could feel the final phase beginning, the moment when their individual consciousness would merge permanently while somehow becoming greater than the sum of its parts. Any who would interfere with this sacred ceremony, Princess Lyralii continued, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through every being in the assembly, stand in violation of the oldest laws of sapient civilization. The Vorthan representative was silent, clearly calculating options and finding them all unacceptable. To attack now would be to violate laws they had used for millennia to justify their own actions. But to allow the ceremony to continue would mean accepting a fundamental shift in galactic politics. Collective forces will withdraw to legal distances, the mechanical being finally announced. But this alliance will be monitored closely for any signs of destabilizing activity. As is your right under galactic law, Princess Lyralii replied graciously. We welcome such observation, as we have nothing to hide. Marcus felt the final moment arriving. Through their bond, he could sense not just Princess Lyralii's mind, but the vast network of Zephyrian consciousness stretching across dozens of worlds. And somehow, through him, that network was beginning to touch human minds across Earth and the colonies. Are you ready? Princess Lyralii asked softly. Marcus looked into her luminous eyes and realized that somewhere in the past few hours, the impossible had become natural. He was about to bond his soul with an alien princess he had known for less than a day, and it felt like the most right thing he had ever done. I'm ready, he said, and meant it completely. The final moment of the ceremony arrived, like dawn breaking across the galaxy. Marcus felt his consciousness expand beyond anything he had imagined possible, becoming part of something vast and wonderful while remaining utterly himself. Through Princess Lyralii, he touched the edges of cosmic understanding that would take humanity centuries to achieve on their own. And Princess Lyralii, through Marcus, experienced the fierce joy of individual achievement that would revitalize Zephyrian culture and help them rediscover the innovation they had traded away for stability. But more than that, their bond created something entirely new, a form of consciousness that was neither fully human nor fully Zephyrian, but somehow both and more. When the blazing light of the altar finally faded, Marcus and Princess Lyralii were no longer two individuals from different species. They were partners in the truest sense, bound not just by law or ceremony, but by a connection that transcended the physical universe itself. It is done, Princess Lyralii announced to the Galactic Assembly, and her voice carried new harmonics that spoke of profound change. Humanity and the Zephyrian Empire are now eternally bonded. Through their connection, Marcus could feel the ripple effects already beginning to spread across both civilizations. On Earth, scientists would soon make breakthrough discoveries that seemed to come from nowhere. Among the Zephyrians, artists and philosophers would find new inspiration that challenged millennia of conventional thinking. The Vorthan fleet withdrew as promised, but Marcus knew through his bond with Princess Lyralii that this was far from over. They had prevented an immediate war, but they had also created something that would fundamentally change the balance of galactic civilization. What happens now? Marcus asked his bonded partner. Princess Lyralii smiled, and through their connection, he felt her joy, her hope, and her absolute certainty about the path they had chosen. Now, she said, we discover what humanity and the Zephyrian Empire can accomplish together. And I suspect the galaxy will never be the same. As the galactic representatives signed off and the immediate crisis passed, Marcus realized that his mission had succeeded in ways no one could have anticipated. He had been sent to establish diplomatic relations with an alien civilization. Instead, he had become the bridge between two species, the first human to be bonded to an alien consciousness, and the catalyst for a new form of civilization that would reshape the galaxy. The alien princess had indeed stared in shock when he chose her as his life partner. But now, through their eternal bond, Marcus understood that they had chosen something far greater than either of them. They had chosen the future of two civilizations and the hope of unprecedented cooperation across the stars. In the months and years that followed, the Human-Zephyrian alliance would become the foundation for a new galactic civilization based on the principle that diversity of thought and approach was not a weakness to be controlled, but a strength to be celebrated. The Vorthan Collective would eventually join this alliance, recognizing that adaptation was preferable to extinction. But all of that was still to come. For now, Marcus and Princess Lyralii stood together in the heart chamber, feeling the universe itself shift around their unprecedented bond, and knowing that they had just taken the first step into a future beyond imagination.